Whenever there's a protest, there will always be volunteer first aiders on the ground. It's time to welcome our next guest, JT. As a medic, JT has treated many patients and wounded during the protests. Hi, JT.
Hi, so greetings, everyone. It is my pleasure, Shirley, to share my experience as a street medic in Hong Kong. Well, before I begin, I would like to take this chance to thank my host of NSW Hongkongers for giving me this opportunity. So, in a normal protest, there was never a fine line to define one's motives as right or wrong, one side as black or white. However, since the anti-extradition law protests began in Hong Kong 1 year ago, it has been clear that whose side was black or white. The police has deployed riot control agents such as tear gas, pepper spray, pepper balls, batons, water cannons, beanbag rounds, rubber bullets, and even live rounds against protesters wielding items that should not be considered as deadly weapons. As those who are injured will lay helpless on the street, hanging on by a thread, there are always some brave individuals who, despite of the raging clouds of tear gas, they rush in to those in need to provide aid and comfort to those in need. They're the street medics of Hong Kong, and I'm proud to say I'm part of the many street medics serving Hong Kong. My name is JT, and I'm a student who is 18 years old, who has also been involved as a street medic in Hong Kong. My journey as a medic began when I was 12. I was studying in US for a year, even though I was very popular with the majority of my students. Back in my school at that time, I was still one of the many unfortunate victims that fall under racial discrimination and bullying. One day I was tripped over and was left bleeding on the floor as the bullies were tackled to the floor by stronger boys. One of my friends whose father was an emergency medical technician has provided aid while calling in for an ambulance. I was drifting in and out of consciousness, and while I came to, I was in the back of an ambulance, lying on a stretcher. From that point on, I decided to be a medic to help others in need. When I returned from the United States, I joined the Hong Kong Red Cross, and then became a sports medic for my school, where I continued service until recently, where I have graduated. I gained experience from watching the biggest and toughest men screaming in pain from injuries big and small. I learned to save lives in times of need, and when the protest started in June 9, I knew I had to do something, but also in the middle of my finals for year 11. So I waited for opportunity to give what I was trained for. And on 21st of July 2019, I stepped out of my house to the big march at Victoria Park as a medic for the first time. The crowd and he was no match. On that day, I was met with heat exhaustion from protesters around me. I sprang to action and got them stabilized enough for others to take over. The feeling of accomplishment was over me, but my partner shakes me to reality as I realize my duty is not done yet. Yet there will be more patients and more injuries. I also saw what I believe that would scar me for life. Really young kids were taking the front, walking way further in front of me, and telling me to be careful. I was sickened. The government, is it really that bad? That even little kids knew they had to stand out to defend themselves? At one given point, I had my fair share of the Chinese-made tear gas. The day was January 1st, 2020. I was at the very front of the Southern Park cordon at 4 p.m., where the police have just tackled multiple protesters vandalizing the HSBC branch near the area. As I expected this to be a rather peaceful march, I had left my gas mask at home, except it's not what I expected. I was a few feet away from the cordon with my partner, who I ran back with from Admiralty to Southern Park after receiving multiple reports of pepper balls and pepper spray being deployed. I only had an N95 that day, so I was just analyzing the scene when all of a sudden I heard a distinctive and clear loud bang throughout my ear. The sound of tear gas canister popping and dispensing the clouds of chemicals. My natural instinct was to run back, but when I heard a lot of my comrades now being affected, screaming in pain, I decided that I should stay and help, but was myself also affected. I'm actually come to a fellow protester before I fell from having difficulties breathing. I thought this was it. Am I going to be arrested and probably be beaten to death in a detention cell? But instead, the very person I just tend to is now helping me. I was shocked and felt grateful. A lot of people didn't make it home safely that day and was arrested, beaten, kept for over 48 hours. During my experience as a street medic, I learned how united Hong Kongers can be, and how when something is united, the wrong people would be very scared. You see how the government suppresses our freedom of speech, the freedom of gathering, because of the freedom of gathering by using the what do you call that? The 599G as a way of suppressing our freedom of speech. And that I criticize. Also, as a street medic, I also learned how sometimes humanity would be nothing when it's placed in front of a dictatorship. During my time as a street medic, I have seen or even shot in close range by less lethal weapons, which are still potentially lethal. And I could not believe my eyes, because myself personally, I'm a Christian, and I believe that "thou shalt not kill" was one of my biggest beliefs. But I cannot understand why the Hong Kong police force can take such a weapon, even though it's marked less lethal, but it's still potentially lethal, and prey upon human beings. That I cannot really understand. So once again, I'd like to thank every Hong Konger and everyone who's watching for being in support. It's been a year. I know it's been a tough year, but we shall prevail. Thank you.
Thank you, JT, for your sharing. Would you like to take some questions?
Sure, I don't mind.
Yep. We've got a question from Shirley. What made you become a frontline first aider?
Hi, Shirley. So, what happened was I was watching the live TV news on that day, and then I've seen people being brutally beaten and even shot in the face with a beanbag around. When I saw these injuries, and I thought, I like to help people since I was a little kid, so I decided to become a first aider and help a lot of people, try to help as many people as I could. And I feel great, and I would feel great about it. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you for being so helpful and selfless. We've got a question from Tanya. What was the most difficult experience you've had as a street medic?
My most difficult experience would be... I've got to think. Dang it. My most difficult experience has got to be the meeting that happened, a rally that happened in regards of the Black Lives Matter. So me and my teammate, we were standing by at the American embassy that day when multiple officers approached me and my teammate for a stop and search. So I was trying really hard to not say anything stupid, because if you say something stupid in front of them, then you're basically over. You either get arrested or you get beaten on the spot. Who knows? Hong Kong police nowadays. And also, another really bad experience was probably being criticized by our own people. Like some people some people who stay at home and not go out, but just criticize every little thing you do. So that is a very hard experience for me too, because it gives you the pressure that you think that you haven't done good enough, and you're probably doing something bad. But then in the end, I criticize those people who sit behind the computer. Those keyboard warriors who doesn't even bother to step out and help. If you think you can do better than me, why don't you just step out and try to prove it? You can prove that you can done better than me, and I will have nothing to say. But instead, you just sit behind the computer and just type up mean comments that really hurts one's feeling. So that is one very hard thing to face, I would say, as a street medic.
Thank you. I've got one more question from Andreas. What is your recommendation for the average untrained protesters when they see casualties? Are you with us?
When you see casualties, you should try to secure the area around them and make sure if they have severe shot wound or being beaten on. Yes, hi, I'm with you guys. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. Yep.
Hello? So, okay, back to where I was. So if you see any severe bleeding that may be, and possibly even person has been suffering from cardiac arrest, let's not talk about cardiac arrest, but anyway, if there's severe bleeding, what I would recommend is find something clean, like tissue, some cloths, anything that's clean, and try to put pressure on the wound to control the bleeding until first aiders arrive. That's what I would say.
Thanks for your
and also
insight.
When you get back to your gas, you can try to use clean water to flush out, to try and flush out. And if there are further symptoms like shortness of breath, you should always call a first aider. Yeah, that's what I like to say. Welcome.
Thank you to JT